raise that bar.
That extra gear, the first 3 steps.
Huge strides in the performance.
That I might not be the player I am today.
All right, welcome to another episode of Behind the Gear, and today we are sitting with Kelly Paton. And Kelly, I've been obviously fortunate to get to know Kelly over the years. We coached together. Kelly's did a bunch of skill development with us and is quite a player, obviously. Pocket-sized player, we'll say. No, I'm kidding. But Kelly obviously had an unreal go and little career at hockey, obviously with going to college and being up for the Patty Cashmere and then playing professionally and now coaching. So we'll get into all that kind of stuff. But hometown for you, home base for you is
Woodstock, Ontario.
Beautiful Woodstock.
It's down the road.
Yeah, that's right. Where hockey's just like kind of a way of life, right?
Dairy capital.
Yeah. Yeah. But you played all your minor hockey in Woodstock, right? And you played with the boys for most of your minor hockey. Yeah,
our claim to fame is we got to play with Jake Muzzin, right? So
there you go.
He was playing a year up with us, and then I was the lone soldier on the female side with my team. But we had a good group of boys and went on a bit of a run, 2 years without losing a game, and then I guess it was grade 9. I came over to girls in London, so I played 1 year Bantam there, and then transitioned to the PW after that.
Okay, and nowadays too, you see a lot of girls that do play boys hockey, obviously on the way up. And I know back then there was harder to find good girls leagues. There were girls leagues, no doubt, but being from a smaller community, it's probably easier to play with the boys and a lot of your buddies, I'm sure. What was it like playing with the boys? Like, what was your role in that team? Were you, a small, fast kind of sniper? Were you kind of what was your role first of all as a player?
To be one of the boys.
It didn't matter what you did.
It helped. I had a cousin on the team. I had a couple, I consider 2 of my best friends that stood in one of their weddings this summer. So I had a lot of guys that didn't treat me like a girl, which was, I think, the biggest thing for me in terms of receiving a positive experience. And I was always a centerman. So, and it helped. My dad was a coach too. So maybe a bit of bias there.
There you go.
I don't know. I was definitely smaller. But I felt like up until probably Pee-wee, the boys really weren't growing too much yet. So, and when we played, actually hitting was back in the Pee-wee age group too. So I think I got 1 or 2 years of body contact, which was fun. Boys would always stick up for me if I got picked on. So, I think we just in combination with our team, we had we won some silver sticks together. We always won OHAs, the Alliance tournaments. We were AA because we were a smaller center, but we'd play exhibition against AAA, like Stratford, some of those boys. Yeah. So, I think it was probably the best situation for me under the circumstances of Woodstock, the group of boys that I was with, and then maybe my skill level as well. It was comparable to the boys at the time, so it helped my development. And I think I got a bit of a fire in my belly anyway, so I could keep up and hopefully
you're a little scrappy.
Yeah, and then and the girls were I think now. Girls are starting to transition to the female side a little bit sooner, which is great. I think there's way more girls playing hockey now, so the hockey's better.
Yeah.
Especially in the competitive streams like the AA and single A loops. So I don't know if that wasn't an option that I considered. I think it was more I was competitive with the boys, so why move until I kind of have to? So we made the move when I felt like recruitment was starting to become a bit more important. If I wanted to pursue any scholarship opportunities in the States, that was going to be the time where exposure was going to be better, especially if I was playing girls hockey.
Yeah, and that's one of the things we talk to with families is there's not a lot of women's scouts for colleges, universities looking at boys hockey unless you're phenomenally playing Bantam AAA or something like that. Yeah. But realistically, there's going to be a time where girls are going to want to play with the girls and get in that loop of getting scouted and getting looked at and stuff like that. What was it like your first? I don't know if you remember this or not, but what was it like when you went from the boys' locker room and guys are a little bit different, obviously, than girls. Well, a lot different. Yeah. But what was it like when you first kind of had your full season with the girls? Was there any real significant differences that you can kind of recall?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I was lucky. And again, I think rules have tightened up a little bit around girls changing with boys. And again, this kind of goes back to the group of boys that I had. They allowed me to be in the same locker room as them, and they'd wait until I was out till they shower and stuff. So they were really respectful of me.
Yeah.
But I'd say the biggest difference was the conversation. I remember coming here and, being used to kind of what the boys talk about, and little boys at that age, they're just fun, right? They don't really care around filters or anything like that. And I'd say girls are a bit more like controlled, giggly. Like, and then when I went into the junior, it was like a whole new thing. Like I had girls on my team hanging out with the Knights at the time, and like just some of the stuff I was like, whoa, I'm from a small town. Like I didn't even know this stuff existed, right?
Yeah.
So it was a good transition, I think, for me. Like I said, I think the experience was way different, you know, being in a room with the same gender versus with the boys, but. I'd say overall, I'd stereotype all hockey players being in the same context, and that like the locker room is typically one of the most fun pieces of a team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things, you know, Hockey Canada, and I understand this ruling, but now they're too deep. Like in the locker room, you have to have coaches and parents, and I'm maybe a bit old school, but I feel like the locker room, obviously you want to monitor as a coach or a parent, make sure there's nothing stupid like buckets and gloves or dumb stuff going on, bullying, things like that. But at the end of the day, those are some of the funnest times in minor hockey. And as you go up even to college and stuff, just having that time with the girls or the boys and talking about what happened last night or what you did at the party in the weekend or how school's going or whatever it is. And not really having a filter sometimes. And a lot of times I think a lot of parents think, well, the girls' locker rooms, they don't talk about that kind of stuff, but they do. Maybe in a different context, but they do.
There's a lot the parents don't know what goes on in there. But no, I don't know. I think, and I'm the same. It's funny because I just pitched this to my team too, like in university. I said, I don't want to be in here with you guys. It's your time. It's your space. But when we're in here, let's be, you know, respectful of each other, but let's have fun at the same time. Right. And I get it too. Like I understand why the rules are the way that they are. And I know I've talked to coaches where there are some problems in the room where kids are hitting each other with sticks and some of the stupid stuff too. Right. But I think, you know, there's definitely a balance between letting them be kids and go through some of those experiences as a group rather than that micromanagement coming down from the adults all the time. But we always had for me, I just played in a senior tournament the other weekend. Shout out to the Sweeberg Steelheads. We're the champions.
Oh, there you go.
Won't mention what level it was at, but
your chance doesn't matter.
If you girls are listening, we played hard, and then. But yeah, I think out of my whole experience from the weekend, it was just for us. And we're a little bit older. We can have some beers in the locker room now. So we win. We're the champions, and they give us a cooler of beer, $200 cash for winning the tournament. So that was the best part. It was celebration after in the room, right? Yeah. So no, I think it's just one of those things that comes with being a hockey player, and you kind of carry it forward wherever you go, and you hope that you know it's appropriate, but at times there's gonna be loose moments where you're a bit more unfiltered, uncensored, and it doesn't necessarily have to be micromanaged.
Yeah, no, and I think you said something there too, where sometimes the kids have to manage themselves, right? Where you have someone step in and say, hey, that was offside, or you know, kind of let them be, you know, navigate as young adults, and as they get older, they're going to deal with worse stuff than that in real life, right? So figuring out how to deal with that stuff, I think is huge. When you were going through, as far as going to Bantam and then coming to mid and then going to play junior, what was that whole process like, as far as for some of these young girls coming up now, getting recruited and I want to try to get a scholarship? How do you do that? How do you even, is it just playing at that level and hoping that scouts are going to be there? I know the P-Dub is massively scouted, and if you're playing on that level, you're going to have scouts watching your games. What was it like for you when you went through it, as far as just, you know, you wanted to get a scholarship, you knew that this was kind of the right spot? I think now, and things have changed significantly since I was being recruited, and that was 10 years ago, really 10, 11 years ago. And the natural path, I'd say now, is go Bantam 1 year midget and then transition into junior. But I'm usually an advocate for, like, if you can play at the highest level, why not? Yeah. Right. And, you know, assuming that the coaching is pretty comparable at both levels with the midget AA and the PW, why not push yourself to be elite and play against the elite? But I think with the way that the recruiting is kind of warped into, where commitments are happening, like I saw a tweet the other day, like somebody's committed to a 2024 entry. It's crazy. That's 8 years from now. Like, how do you know, right? And with that pressure of having to make those commitments early, if you feel like a U.S. scholarship is something that you want, I'd say Canada, we typically stay a little bit later, but even us, like, we're going into the 2021 age group right now, so grade 10s. You know, most people are wanting that exposure at an early age. And for me, when I played, we were making decisions in grade 11 and 12 with no pressure to the U.S. side, especially. Like, I was doing my official visits and stuff like that, and that's just not existent anymore. So just the way that I'd say it's more paralleling, like, what the boys would see in terms of how they recruit or how they commit. But I think May 1st is when the new NCAA rules come in, where it's trying to reel them back a little bit from that early commitment, so that it's hard for a 14-year-old to decide what their future is going to look like when they get to 18, right? So
And our scholarships in Canada are contingent on grades, which is a big piece, right? So for us to say to a grade 9, yeah, we've got, X amount of dollars for you, and then they have to meet a certain GPA in grade 11, it's a hard indicator at that point whether or not they're going to continue along the same academic path.
Yeah.
With grades especially. So we got to be a bit more careful around monitoring the GPA side of it. Where I'd say there's a bit more flexibility. You still got to go through SAT, ACT on the US side, but the scholarship's there. It's going to be there assuming that you pass or you get your diploma from high school.
So nowadays, for some of the higher end girls in grade 9 and 10, they're already getting visits. They're already getting recruited a little bit or talked to in some sort of way, right? Where back in the day, it was grade 11 and grade 12. You had a little more time to make that decision and kind of go through the process, right? Where now that process is kind of squeezed up a little bit. And
it's well, I'd say it's unanimous across all coaches that we agree that it's probably not the best thing for the sport just based on the age of the athlete.
Yeah.
But, it's one of those things, if you don't like it, if someone's doing it, you got to kind of follow suit, right? Because you miss out on the opportunity for some high end kids too. And we're all wanting the most skilled player. I think, again, our approach in Canada is a bit different because we know we're probably going to lose about the top 25% of that age group to the US just due to scholarship and funding opportunities. So we've got to consider some other things and we've got to really see the potential and growth in game, especially. And typically you're going to see that the best when they're a little bit older, right? When you got 16, 17-year-olds, maturity, what you're going to get from personality standpoint, from skill on the ice, like can they shoot, can they skate at that point? Like it's hard sometimes to predict that path from a, Bantam, first year Bantam, second year Bantam, right? Grade 8, grade 9.
And I think the exposure too, you think of a grade 8, grade 9, what they're exposed to just in social settings, right? Now you fast forward to grade 9 and then 10, 11, 12. I mean, there's a lot of different things, boys, girls, from dating, from drugs, alcohol, all this stuff, parties. Like some girls can fly off the rails. Some guys can fly. Like, so you're committing to a girl in grade 9. She could be a train wreck in grade 11 or 12, right? And it needs to be kind of pulled back in. So to your point, it probably is a little bit too early overall, but that's kind of the way it's trending a little bit, right? So
I think for us too, like, what isn't comparable to the boys' side is we typically get girls that are 18 transitioning out of high school right to university, right? So from a development standpoint, it'd be awesome. You can use the Quebec League as an example where they have that CJEP kind of in between. So now all of a sudden they're getting 2 years, 3 years of development out of high school to continue to grow, learn the game, develop their skills. By the time they're first year, they're 21 all of a sudden, right? Where our comparable is 18. Yeah. There's a big difference in like you said, in terms of exposure, especially where I just feel like you're in a better spot. Like I had my best year in college when I was a senior and that was done, right? And it was probably because I was a little bit older and maybe didn't make stupid decisions like I did when I was a freshman and maybe understood the game a little bit better too. And, it was a shame because I was like, wow, I'm just getting started. Right. This is the like right now I'm hitting my potential and all of a sudden snap my finger, I'm graduating. And then, well, guess I'm done.
It's crazy, right? Yeah. And then when you look at like right now, I mean, and obviously for those who don't know, Kelly, you coached at Western for a bunch of years, went to the national championship, and then now you're looking to rebuild kind of the Laurier program and take that to the next level. And obviously your first year this year, we'll talk about that a little bit in a bit, but that's a whole new thing. But now you're on the other side of it as far as recruiting. With Western, you kind of had a bit of a good thing. You had some good pieces there to kind of build a championship team or a national championship team to get to the finals, and which is amazing. Now you're looking at recruiting to kind of build that again, right? So when you are out recruiting in the P-Dub or midget, what are some things that you're looking for in these young women as far as their skills or some character things, or what are some of the pillars that you use to kind of recruit? Yeah,
well, we've go through a number of different assessments through our staff to try and figure out whether or not they're going to be a good fit for our program. I think we try to identify good people first. Like that's like the utmost, most important thing to me when you're going through a rebuild, especially is you want the culture in your room to be strong. And that comes with good work ethic, good attitude, being accountable, being respectful, always being honest. Some of those like intangible things that maybe in today's world are a bit more loose and undetermined when you get them at 18, where the skill for us is we're again, we want them to be able to skate the game. Like that's, for me, that's how I survived, right? Like if you're a good skater, you typically are going to have a positive impact on the outcome, especially, but the puck skills and I find, simple things like angling, especially like angling, gap control those are underdeveloped through the midget and junior loops a little bit. And again, it depends on coaching. And I wouldn't say that's a blanket across the board, but that's probably the two specific skills that I find, like stick awareness. Like, what are you doing in this situation? I don't know. I've never been taught that. Okay, great. So gives us a bit more of an opportunity to work with some raw skill.
Yeah.
And maybe try to develop some of those finer details where, and I get it, because we coach junior, right? You're stretched for time always. Like, you're trying to work on special teams, and all of a sudden you got other areas to work in, whether it be PK, power play, 5-on-5, face-offs. Like, you have 2 practices a week to fit it all in. There's just not enough time.
Yeah.
Where when we get them and we're going with four practices to every 2 games, like, okay, here's our moment. Let's teach. And I always tell our girls, like, practice is my time, games are your time. So they got to show up ready to learn and hopefully want to absorb some of that information to make themselves better as hockey players. But I'd say, like, when I was at Western, work with some of those athletes, like, they were elite because they understood the process of performance, meaning, like, they did the right things away from the rink, especially in their preparations. So they trained hard, they took care of their school, they managed their time well, they ate properly, they got enough sleep every night. Like, it was some of those decisions that I found allowed them to have success. Coaching is a small piece of it, maybe, but I'd say those players specifically that had the opportunities, like Goose, obviously with the national team now, like, she's carrying forward some of those same principles now. And, with us at Laurier, we're trying to instill some of those same habits so that we start to see some success, especially at outcome. And then, hopefully at some point in the next couple of years, we're competing for provincial championships. And then, long-term, maybe look at some national championships as well.
Yeah. No, it's cool. And I think, when you look at the kind of what makes up some of these young players, you look at obviously character and work ethic and doing the right things, all that stuff is huge. Skills, obviously a big piece of that as well. But it's crazy, right? When you look at these girls that are playing the PW, they're some of the elite of the elite. They're the top 50% of that league that are going to the US or Canadian universities. And a lot of them come in, they're pretty green.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like they're very good
skill.
at, they're very good, but they haven't learned the right things to do to get to that elite level. Mm-hmm. And that's a big jump. Would you agree, from going from junior hockey to university hockey?
It's the same with, that I'm a firm believer. That's why the farm system's in place for the NHL guys. There's a lot of stuff that they still need to work on, like edges and just shooting mechanics, everything like that. Right. And for these girls, I think it's a bit of an eye opener, like knowing there's an age gap. So you're going 18 versus 22, 23 potentially, right? So you got a 5-year gap with just strength and just body weight in general. Like 18, you haven't really found you're settled in your mass yet. So that's a big area. But I think the biggest adjustment, especially up front, is roles and just going from 9 forwards to 12 forwards and trying to figure out how to manage the ice time that you do get, because it's not an equal ice time philosophy when you get to our level, right? Yeah. Like, you want equal opportunity to play in every situation. But reality is we're going to have to probably make some decisions on who's getting what ice time in certain situations based on skill sets. So it's just try to be patient, I think, especially as a younger player. But for our program anyway, we're going to put the best player out there for the position. So it doesn't mean if you're 1st or 4th year. And I think that's something I received when I was in college too. And, I was put in situations as a freshman that, depending on the coach, maybe otherwise wouldn't be there, because we had a competitive coach who wanted to win, and you have the best interest of your team in hand, right?
Yeah, for sure. Now, talking a little bit about you going to school, I mean, you obviously received a scholarship to UNH and had a great 4 years there. When you were going through the process as a player and you went to a couple different schools, what made you choose UNH? I mean, I know that you can maybe rhyme off some of the schools you went to, 'cause some of them were big schools, some of them were smaller schools, UNH on the smaller side as far as population. But what kind of helped you get through that decision-making and kind of figure out what was the best fit for you? Yeah,
I remember, we went through, like, as a family, obviously the process, and my parents were pretty heavily involved. I don't know if my brother cared, but he was there.
He didn't care.
He just wanted me to play college hockey.
Yeah, get out of the house.
Yeah, but I think for me, like, I looked at it, I was fortunate that I had the opportunity to be a bit picky with what I looked at in terms of what was important when I made my decision. And I looked at a number of different things. Like, I was a big advocate, go as far away from home as possible. That was my thing, right? At the time, as a 17-year-old, didn't want to be close to my parents. Well, if I would redo it, I maybe would have reevaluated that decision. I think it would have been nice to have him at more games, especially. But I think the size of the school mattered. Academic program was obviously important. Success of the program, where I saw my role being as a first-year athlete. And I think the biggest thing was my connection to the staff, especially. Did they believe in me as a player? And then I had the opportunity to obviously go down to campus and meet some of the current players and get a read on whether or not this was going to be the right fit for me. Did they value the same things that I did as a student athlete? And I think the decision, like when I came down, it was Wisconsin and UNH kind of in the final two, and went to both campuses. And, before we even really opened a discussion about it, my dad's like, I already know what you're going to choose. And I think it was more around the hometown, like smaller vibe, where it was a bit more personal in some of the relationships, whether it be with your professors, your coaches, your athletic admin. And, and that may be why that move to Laurier happened too, and from kind of a bigger institution to a small institution. And, again, easier to kind of build relationships with some people that you're going to work directly with day to day. And, but overall, I think I'm a big advocate for explore all opportunities while they're there. And you've earned the right to kind of be a bit picky and, make a decision that you think is going to be best for your future.
And I think too, like, looking at your background, small town, and, and kind of like you said, Woodstock, and you knew everybody, you had good friends there, a lot of family, obviously. Going to a place like Wisconsin that's massive, or Western that's massive, maybe that's not the right fit for somebody that likes a small town or a tight atmosphere, right?
Yeah.
But let's say you're from Toronto down to, you love the buzz, you love the busyness, you love that, maybe not knowing everybody, then maybe that big school is. So to your point, knowing what you want and kind of what you want to get out of it and what's important to you, I think is, because a lot of times I think young athletes, whether it's male or female, they make decisions just on, oh my God, Wisconsin's unbelievable. They're they're one of the best schools. I'm going.
Just won a national championship.
Right. Yeah. There you go. Right.
Pretty good.
Yeah. But then you get there and you're like, man, you're just one of like 20, 30,000. And maybe that's not the right fit. So,
I think with like I said before, like the recruitment, the way that it's going now, like young females are deciding for the hockey and they're kind of disregarding the academic piece. Well, reality is, and again, we'll talk about this probably later, but like we're a little tight on options post-secondary when it comes to having a career in hockey, right? Like, again, I know there's going to be spots and there's going to be 20, 24 athletes competing at the national team level at the Olympic stage, but that's the reality of our sport, right? And we don't have the same avenues that the men have when it comes to earning a salary through athletics. So you got to get a job, right? Yeah. And, part of that's going to come from the academic side of being a student athlete. And I'd say I speak more like from a coaching standpoint, like this is something that we always have to be clear on with our recruits, especially, is don't make the decision just on hockey. Like it's got to be the right fit for you in a number of different ways. Obviously, our job is to deliver a really positive experience and hopefully, be competitive, win some games, hopefully some championships as well. But again, one team's going to win championships. So every year, and it's more the holistic approach. What can we put together as a package to try and sell ourselves as an institution first? And part of that's going to come from, what do you want to do for a career? Yeah. Right. No, I know you want to be a hockey player, but guess what? Like things are happening, right? And the funding's just not going to stay at a level where we're eventually going to warp it into like a national hockey league. Yeah. Right. You're getting millions of dollars to play the game you love. Well, that's far-fetched. If not, never going to happen. So I think that sometimes is overlooked. And again, when you're committing somewhere in grade 8 and grade 9, that you're going to look at the principal, which is hockey, and then figure out the kind of the schooling later on, where I think that's why you're seeing some decommitments happening. Yeah. On both sides, like from a coaching standpoint, maybe the development wasn't quite there. Like you said, priorities have changed, or kids like, well, I thought I wanted to be in engineering. Well, now I want to be a nurse, and the school doesn't have nursing. So I'm not going to go there anymore. Right. Yeah. So that's kind of the trends that I'm picking up on. I could be right. I could be wrong. It's just one person's opinion. No, it makes sense though. And I think as a parent, with a young daughter that's playing, in high level girls hockey, loves hockey, you need to manage expectations as well, right? And maybe help navigate that a little bit. I think it's important for the female to make that decision, if she's going to or has an opportunity to go to school or whatever it is. But I think as parents, we got to be able to be realistic about the whole thing and say, you know what, there's not going to be $1 million contract at the end of this, right? Yeah. But for you, even like, so really quick, because this is quite an achievement, but even just getting nominated for the Patty Cashmere. For those of you who don't know, it's like the Hobie Baker of hockey for women. It's the best of the best, as an individual award. But you got nominated for that. And just being nominated is quite an achievement in itself. I mean, that's something that, there's a lot of female hockey players playing NCAA and, it was a pretty cool experience for you. Yeah. I think, my senior year was special for a number of reasons. I think the biggest event that we participated in was the outdoor game at Fenway. That was awesome. Cool. Yeah. So I was fortunate. I was captain that year and I got to do some lead up stuff. Some free gear too. Yeah. Threw a first pitch out of the Red Sox game, and then on the first pitch, did you nail it, or was it? Definitely probably a dirt ball. That mound's far away. Yeah, it was like a David Price throw, probably. But just being around the the build up to that game. Obviously, we were the afternoon matinee, as you call it. BC men were playing. That was kind of the key in on game. But we dressed in the dugout, which was interesting. But they did it upright. Like they blew up our pictures for us, and then so that game was, I'd say, probably the best defining moment of my college career. Like it was something really special to be a part of. And then that year was interesting because it was out of the previous 3, like we'd gone to the Hockey East Championship every year and won. And then my senior year, we kind of lost some of the key players in our program, and we knew it was probably going to be a bit tougher for us to get to that end goal. But I think we got to the semis and we ended up getting beat, which was a bit disappointing at the time. So we didn't really know what our fate was in the tournament, because typically as tournament champions, you go in as an auto bid, right? And we were ranked at the time. So never concerned with us getting in. We're kind of sitting there, hands are tied. It's up to the committee to figure out whether or not we're going to get a large berth, right? Yeah. And so I just remember sitting around with our seniors. We were on a campfire waiting for the announcement to come out, and the excitement on our face and the genuine, like, we're so excited to be a part of this. And it was something that we were really fortunate that they selected our team, and then got beat out in the quarter, so didn't make it to the 4. So that's when the process kind of got a bit unique with me anyway, with the Patty Kazmaier nomination and being a finalist. I was the only finalist where my team wasn't competing in the 4, which was interesting. So it was, my dad flew down, my coach came up with us, and we kind of had our own little table of like 4 or 5 people. Everybody else had their onslaught of team, right? So I'm sitting there kind of like, wow, this is weird. I'm a bit of an outlier right now, but just the lead up to it and the publicity and some of that stuff that comes with it. It's a pretty special experience to be a part of. And, one of my friends, Vicky Bendez, was the winner of that year, and, very comparable to me in terms of stature. Yeah. Obviously, I would say the player. Very tall. Huge. Like, he turned some heads when we walked by. And, I was happy to see her win in the moment. I was probably disappointed. I don't really remember exactly. It was 8 years ago, but I just know, like, going through the process of writing the speech, and then, just being prepared for both scenarios, I think has helped me with my job now, because when you go into meetings with players, you kind of prepare yourself for A, B, and C. So you have a good reaction around what's going to be delivered. Right. So I do think long-term, it definitely, was good for me to go through it. And obviously, like, I'd love to sit here and tell you that I was the winner, but can't always be a winner, I guess, and everything you do. So it was good. It was really positive. I was happy to be a part of it.
No, just to be nominated is amazing. Yeah. You're coming down to the bottom or the top, players, which is unbelievable. Really quick, I want to backpedal a little bit on, because a lot of these young girls that are going through the process, kind of like you did, are going to get opportunities to play on the provincial team. So Team Ontario, and then it goes into Team Canada, and then it, kind of moves forward. And you had an opportunity on both ends to be kind of on the strength and conditioning side of it and the coaching side of it with Team Canada and the Canadian way. But you also were kind of got through that process as a player as well. And I know it all depends what they're looking for. Sometimes they're looking for size. So someone, who's maybe a little bit shorter doesn't get the fair shake and things like that. But overall, what was it like for you to go through that process of being, provincially kind of recognized and then nationally and stuff? Like, what was all that like?
Yeah, it was good. I think, again, coming from a small town, I might have been a bit naive to some of those processes and the achievements that it was to be a part of some of those programs. And, I was on Team Ontario Red. We'd won the national championship when I was in grade 11, I think. So, that was a fun experience. I remember, my line mate's gloves got put in the Hall of Fame. So that was pretty cool for her. And, so it's nice to circle back with some of those players now. I just say, hey, remember we were doing that together? Like, how fun was that experience? Right. And then, moving into college when I was kind of in and out of camps with the national program, and just seeing like-minded athletes and being around the same people who had the same goals was really obviously like motivating and inspirational. And I think for me, it kept me level-headed that, there's other people like you, and there's other people that are achieving either, a higher level of your sport. And then, obviously having the Olympic team to look up to as well, like, and having known some of those girls too. And then when I was on the other side of it as a staff member with Hockey Canada, it was nice for me to go through that and understand the process a bit better as an adult. Yeah. Because there was moments of frustration when as a player I wasn't being selected to these teams where I felt like contribution anyway wise, I was pulling my weight that way. And But to see kind of what the strategy goes in when you actually go to select a roster. So you are looking at specific players to play specific roles and, you know, how intricate it is and how many conversations they have and how, you know, how many levels of evaluation they go through when they go to actually select those teams. And, you know, I'm happy for all the girls that get the opportunity to wear the Maple Leaf on their jersey. And I know how hard it is now to get there and how proud those girls should be when they do get those opportunities. And, you know, having worked with some of the athletes in town, like obviously like the Gosling girls, like it's pretty special for them to go through it as a family, especially. And, you know, having the level of success that they're having now, especially in the PW, but just even at the international level, being contributors on Team Canada in a positive way. So it's fun to be around. I love working with athletes like that have that competitive drive to reach the higher level. And I wouldn't say that would be the makeup of my current team, like meaning in the youth sport, like we're going to have one or two athletes across OUA that would have the ability and the skill, hopefully more long term, but like we've had a couple players like Melody Dadu that played at McGill. Like obviously she was the MVP of the Olympics. Like it's a good advocate for our league that we had a player competing in youth sport that was achieving that level of success in the Olympic tournament. But I'd say like we find a bit more of a balance with the academic side with our girls. I think, you know, there's kind of invested interest on both sides where I was always an athlete where I was like sport first. Right. Like I wanted to win and I would go to any extreme to make sure that my team was going to win that game. And again, I'd say that that's still the mentality of some girls that we work with in our league. But I would say it's a bit more hockey first when I was a player. And I think now it's kind of blending into more of the conversation where let's look at the bigger picture. Let's try to balance everything together, which is good. Like long term, way better. That model is going to be more supportive for career choices and career driven individuals. And I think for us as coaches, our role is to deliver an experience that's really positive, that's constructive, that offers development, but also give them the opportunity to balance the other side of what they're committing to, which is the academic piece, right? So,
yeah, no, for sure. When you look back, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but when you look back now as a coach, so you're coaching at a high level, obviously the highest level in girls hockey in Canada. When you're looking back now as a coach, do you look, you know, kind of like, let's say your career and you're like, man, maybe I wasn't as good as I thought I was, or maybe I didn't fit. Maybe I was a square peg trying to fit in that round hole. And I get it now. It doesn't, you know, and does it make it easier for you as a coach to be able to relay that to other girls where you're like, I went through this. I understand what it's like. And this is why you're not playing, or this is why this is happening, you know?
Yeah. I try to stay like relatable that way where, you know, I kind of lean on my experience as an athlete and try to show them that I've been through the same process and I've went through the same challenges, or the coach asked the same thing of me as an athlete. And it's definitely manageable. Like this isn't something that's out of reach for you. But yeah, you know, for me, I'm still competitive. I like to play with them in practice in a sense, like any type of competition game, I'm usually in it. Like, and I try to show them that like my expectations for them are realistic. And ultimately I want them to achieve their highest potential. Right. And that's where, I think finding that balance where, you know, understand having a good level of expectation for your team, especially, and that's going to change year to year, right? Like depending on the group of athletes that you have. But I think, for me, it's just, I just enjoy kind of every aspect. And I'm fortunate to be in the role that I am where I get to coach hockey for a living and, you know, work with some pretty special student athletes along the way. And I try to do as much as possible in terms of being relevant, especially like, and as I start to grow in age and the girls get younger, like we're recruiting like 2002, 2003 birth years, which scares me. You know, it's getting harder for me to stay as relevant with my playing career because girls are like, it was like 2 when you were playing great. Like that means nothing to me, right? Yeah. I think for me, it's trying to keep up with like the demonstration side. So, okay, you didn't know me as a player, but here I'm as a coach, and you can kind of see where my skating is, where my puck handling is, where my shooting is. Like, and this was relatable to when I was a player, right? So, and again, it's trying to earn that extra level of respect from your players so they want to listen when you talk.
Yeah, and I think one thing that you know, I had the privilege of coaching with you, which was awesome, and you were just kind of coming out of playing and finishing up your masters and stuff like that, and I remember being on the ice for one of the first couple of practices, and you went out and you're obviously very competitive and you got a little bite to you and you compete and score. But you were on the ice flying around and doing stuff. And I remember some of the girls, like I was standing in line and they was like, holy geez, like she's so good. Yeah. But even now, I you know, as you age, you're still fit. And I think that's one of the things as a skills coach or a hockey coach or whatever it is that you're trying to be relatable. It's difficult because you're going to get older. Yeah. They're staying the same age, which is hard. Yeah. But you know, staying in shape and working on your skills a little bit and jumping in drills, like then respect your skill set. And like, wow, she was
totally
really good. And that's a whole other way of relating to these young girls and kind of getting them to buy into what you're saying, right?
Yeah, I just, I think for me, I'm fortunate. I might have some good genes where maybe I look more fit than I actually am. But I think for the most part, like, if I'm feeling really motivated, I'll go through a set of fitness testing with them. It just depends on the week or two leading up to whether or not I actually got in the gym. But I think, you got to find ways to, if you're asking your athletes to be fit, you want to make sure that you look presentable. And if you're being an advocate for one area of the game, like either have the knowledge through video to back it up. Like not everybody's going to be in a position where they can show you how to correct shooting in stride or like some of those skills that are a bit more difficult, right? Like,
sure.
But if you have the knowledge, you can throw a show through video and you can actually like walk them through a little adjusting, especially like through error and correction. Like I think that's where you can learn or earn some respect with your athletes. But for me right now, I got to take advantage of my age, especially, and just try to build a reputation that, I'm a coach that's going to get engaged in drills, that's going to correct on the spot, that can show you what I want in terms of how to manage each skill in certain areas of the game. And I think that's where, again, if they see it, then they're going to be a believer that they can do it. Yeah. Right. And that's my biggest thing is we want all these things are achievable. And it's, again, getting you to be confident yourself first. And then but if they ever beat me, then that's when I get a bit sour. Like if I lose a race on the ice, like I'd say one or two of our girls now could probably go almost stride for stride with me in terms of a straight line race. And that's when I'm like, okay, this sucks now. And I'm just such a poor sport around losing. So, but overall it's been really good that way.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We talk about, the light at the end of the tunnel for girls as far as what's the career path after, but maybe some of them want to be nurses or doctors or whatever it is, or accounting, electrician, doesn't matter. Right. Yeah. But when you look at it, one of the things I like doing on this pod when I'm talking to people is talking about like, how do you make a living doing hockey? And you've managed to do that. Yeah. And I want to touch on your little stint of pro, because I think it's awesome when girls get a chance to go play professional hockey and get paid to play. But even doing what you're doing now, coaching or scouting or getting involved with Hockey Canada, or you just mentioned you were at a great dinner with the broadcaster who's on Lease Lunch. Fire her name out.
Andy Petrillo.
Yeah, and she's awesome. We were just talking about her, but she's done an amazing job and has a career in hockey now, in sport, but in hockey mostly. And you see a lot of now great women on SportsCenter and TSN, and so there's a lot of different ways to make hockey a career if you're super passionate about it, and that's kind of what you want to do, right? But it's for some of these girls that get an opportunity to go play professionally, like we talked about Gosling, like Caitlin Gosling, won a championship with Calgary a couple weeks ago, right?
Clarkson Cup.
Yeah, we get a chance to go play pro. And when you were kind of finishing up and this opportunity came to you, was it kind of a no-brainer, or was it something where you're like, kind of hemmed and hawed about it?
Yeah, I think, like I touched on before, I really believe that my career wasn't done my senior year. Like I felt like I was just achieving my level of success that I felt I had the potential to get to. And I was fortunate. I had some previous teammates go over and play in Switzerland, and I kind of knew a bit of the backstory to their experience, and some of the financial opportunities it provides you as well. And I was really just looking to continue forward my career, and I was fortunate. I was put in a spot there where I was kind of a bit more of a mentor too, which was a cool position for me to be in, where they're kind of bringing North Americans over, and they got an import rule too, like the boys do. Like they had four max. Yeah. So it was myself, a girl from Japan, a girl from Finland, and a girl from Austria in the Swiss League, which was awesome. So just putting myself in an environment where I wasn't super comfortable. Obviously, like English wasn't the first language. So my coach would deliver all our pregame speeches in Swiss German, which I didn't understand a lick of. So it was like kind of like Love and Basketball, that movie, where I was just sitting there waiting for my team to kind of tell me what my coach had just said. And they're like, just get the puck to you. No, I'm just kidding. But no, it was fun. Like it was a good experience for me to be a part of. I traveled a ton. Like that was probably the primary of why I went. And then, given the opportunity to continue playing was nice too. And I just develop and build relationships that way too. I still talk to like 2 or 3 of the girls that are over there, and it's just when you're in my position now, where you've got athletes that want to continue playing, and especially in Europe, like those relationships that I built 8 years ago are important now, because I'm the liaison for their contact to get over there, right? So I just feel like in terms of being rounded that way, I can be a resource to help them further their career too. And I might have put on a few pounds when I was over there, but aside from that, it was a really good experience.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. And I think, and you've had that experience, so you can speak to it, which is great. But I remember going into rinks with you before when we were watching players play at a tournament, and it's crazy how many people that you knew from coaches that you played against or for or whatever. But I mean, pretty much every school that was represented there, you knew somebody that knew somebody. And that's important too, just to kind of help grow the game, obviously, and help your girls out, help whatever girls are looking for help, whether it's, someone that you're working with in the summer or girls on your team to maybe connect them to do their masters or do get into coaching or play, beyond. And I think for a lot of these young girls coming up, being a good person, number one, but don't be afraid to build relationships. Like talk to your coach, get to know your coach, and because it is a small world. Whether it's guys hockey, girls hockey, whatever it is, it's a small world when you really get into it. And the more connections you can make, if this is something you'd love to do as far as making sport a career or hockey a career, there's that all those connections are going to pay off down the road if you're making them, right?
Yeah, I think for us as coaches, like our underlying thing is our integrity as a coach. And part of that is building relationships and being in good standing with your peer group, right? And because it's all through recommendation, right? Like we want a player to come to us. Well, guess what? We're making 2 or 3 phone calls as a reference to that player. Well, that player also wants to do the same for you. So they're going to talk to everybody that knows you as a coach, which you like. Even good example is when I was transitioning to Laurier, I know a bunch of the girls off Laurier reached out to girls off Western. Sure, hey, what's Kelly like? What's she like as a coach? Is she an ass? Like whatever. Like I don't know what they talked about. They probably said I was a B, but who knows? But it's just like, it's those little things that go a long way. Even going through the process of hiring a few people within our program, like it was crazy how many like overlapping people we knew. And I'm like, great, I can just use them as a reference. I can call this person, right? And I think that's really important for me. Like that's something that I tried to do a good job at, is when I'm at tournaments, especially in the realm of recruiting, like making an effort to say hi to the people that I know so that they continue to know where I'm at, what I'm doing, what I'm looking for. Cause who knows, like I've gotten a couple of phone calls from US schools that just say, hey, this kid's not a good fit for us. You might want to look at this player. Right. And again, it helps my program that way too. So I don't know. I'm a pretty personal person. I think I like, obviously from the podcast, I like to talk. I have no problem talking, and especially when it's about hockey. So it's fun. Like that's what makes my job fun, is just talking to people and about the sport that we all love, and providing the right opportunities to girls so that they feel like they're in a good spot to be successful. Yeah, I know for sure. And we kind of talked about this before the podcast, but with the Canadian Professional League going down, basically, just came out really recent that they're going to fold. So that's 5 teams with probably at least 20 females on that team, right? So you're looking at about 100 girls that are very good players that are now looking for places to play or career choices, or I'm sure a lot of them will get jobs and kind of move on. But what are your thoughts on girls hockey after kind of post college? Like, is there going to be more opportunity for girls in the next 4 or 5 years, you think? Is it going to continue to get kind of knocked down the way it has? Because there's still a North American League in the United States, I think, that has 5 teams. They're talking potentially that this could open up opportunities for some Canadian teams to join that league. But what are your thoughts on that as far as just, what's the state, what does that look like? And I know we're not going to hold you to this if it does or doesn't happen. If it does happen, somebody owes me a lot of money. Yeah, exactly. Well, I think they're like with the CW anyway, so the league that's in Canada, like obviously they brought in 2 of the teams in China, because China's hosting the next Olympics with the goal of developing some of those girls, knowing that they're going to be competing in female ice hockey or women's ice hockey in the tournament. So I think, I've got a number of friends that play and coach in that league. And I think for them, it was a really positive thing for them. Like every time I spoke to them, they were really happy about the league and the involvement. Obviously the NHL had stepped up in a small capacity with each team, giving, I don't know, $5,000 to $10,000, or maybe it was a bit more, like showing that they were supportive of the league and kind of what experience it was providing to those girls. And I think now there was a bit of an issue with the 2 leagues competing, because the NHL was kind of undecided on which league they were supposed to be supporting. Right. And knowing that there was kind of centers in, obviously the big cities like Toronto, Calgary, those teams, but then you've got New York, Boston, they're all centers where NHL teams are. So for them, it was like, well, who are we supposed to support? Are we supposed to pick one or the other? Are we supposed to do both? So I think, there's been a couple articles come out since the announcement, and, it sounds pretty optimistic that there's going to be something. And once that thing is created, then it's just finding the space for all the girls that are currently playing in the 2 leagues. Because the reality is, it's not going to support it'd be really excited if it was 12-team league. But I think they got to think smaller scale first to see if they can survive with the financial commitment. So let's think 6 to 8 teams. Well, that's, 80 to 120 girls that no longer have a place to play.
Yeah.
Right. At the highest level.
Yeah,
like you could be
sure.
like me and play senior WB and be completely fine with it.
Yeah.
and I'm super happy with that.
Yeah.
There's some different other areas too, like senior AA exists, senior A exists. Like there are some other avenues that girls can take that are a bit more like less structured, not fan based, like stuff like that. You're not getting paid, you're paying to play. But I think within the next couple of months, you're going to see some things develop where it's going to be, I think, a positive response. They're going to see some support, maybe like we talked earlier about the commitment that the NBA does to the WNBA, and that's basically how the league survives. Like there's a guaranteed financial commitment every year that comes out of the NAA.
And that was about $1 billion roughly, right? To help run those teams, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And obviously that helps fund a lot of that league, and the league gets a little bit of fanfare.
Yeah, it might be $1 million. I don't know. I think it was $1 billion.
Yeah. Well, we'll say between a mill and a bill.
Yeah.
But regardless, there's a lot of money going towards that league and kind of helping them out with basically surviving, right?
Salaries, just and again,
really quickly, actually, while we're on money, I was looking this up just the other day. I was looking at some stuff on girls hockey when all this stuff was happening, and I was looked up what does a female hockey player make, and they had some stuff in there about anywhere from $10,000 to like $50,000.
Yeah,
which
pretty accurate.
Yeah, which I mean, $10,000 you need a second job, right?
Yeah.
$50,000 probably still maybe need a second job, but not bad. Like for 6 months of hockey, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
I know it's not maybe building a career around, but it's not bad, right? But I mean, if they could, if there is a way to get that more financial help, and not necessarily even for salaries, but just make sure the teams can run, they get sticks, they get gear, are able to get.
Yeah, I think the girls that are like the key girls that play on the national programs, like Apula and Spooner, like some of those girls, Decker, Knight, like they're funded well through sponsors, especially.
Yeah.
I say they're at the higher end, maybe above what you were saying. Like, I mean, Decker got a quick $25,000 when she won the skills comp at the NHL.
Yeah.
So, like little things like that help, obviously, right? But I'd say on average, like most of the girls that were competing in the CW were making $4 or $5 grand.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a hobby.
Yeah.
And that doesn't cost you anything to play. Right. And they all had, a lot of them are teachers, a lot of them are in like public service, like policing or firefighting, that allow them to have some flexibility in their schedule. To be traveling to Calgary on a weekend, to be traveling China on a weekend, like stuff like that. Right. So it's, it's a bit frustrating that way with the actual money that is being compensated for their time. But I think they're fortunate to have something.
For sure.
So, for me, like it was the same principle when I went over to play pro. I was tagged as a professional, but I would say I was more of like a
poverty line.
Yeah, kind of. Like, no, I'm just kidding. I was, like I said, I got paid a little bit. Like I paid $2,000 a month to go over and play in Switzerland, and didn't cost me anything to live. Traveled for free, essentially. Like came home with a bit of cash, but that wasn't the primary reason. And it's the same thing for these girls. Like they're not playing to make money. Yeah, they're playing because they love the sport and they want to grow the game, right? So, we'll see. Like the higher hope is that I get to the Mike Babcock contract.
Oh yeah.
So we'll see. Just a couple of years away.
Yeah, no big deal. It's coming.
So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. And I know one of the people that are going to go on the other side of this are going to say stuff like, well, there should be equal pay. And I mean, the NHL guys make millions of dollars and is it or NBA or MLB, doesn't matter. They're making crazy amount of money overall. Right. But I mean, they're selling a lot of jerseys, they're selling a lot of merch, they're filling stands. There's a lot of other things that go into it. Right. So for girls hockey, I think we talked about this a little bit, is just girls hockey's growing. There's no doubt. There's more girls playing hockey than there was 10 years ago. But getting those young girls involved and coming to games and getting their families out and making the games entertaining and fun. And, kind of like if you go to an NBA game, they're way more entertaining than some of the NHL games as far as every whistle, there's something going on. There's a mascot out there. There's a promo going on. Yeah, that helps.
Yeah.
But
there's girls on the court.
Yeah, exactly. But as they continue to grow the game, then hopefully there is more financial, benefit there for the league. And then, maybe that is something that girls can play pro for 10 years in Canada or in North America, make a good living. And,
Yeah. Well, I think like, I'm an advocate for it too. I'd love equal pay for equal work, but reality is the world's a business model. And if you're not generating any revenue, well, how do you have the same expectation for compensation? Like, it just doesn't make sense that way. Like, it's going to cost somebody basically a donation to keep the league alive. That's kind of what happened in the NW. They had one staple donor that donated like $80 million. Well, once the money runs out, where is the funds coming in from, right? Yeah. So, you got to give credit to where it's due. And like those guys that are like, who is it, Trout, that just signed for like 400, right? Yeah. Like, well, they play 100 and something games, 162 games or whatever it is. Like they're selling out a lot of time, maybe not in Anaheim, but the Red Sox are selling out. Blue Jays are getting good crowds. Like, and there's being revenue generated through ticket sales, and then merch is on top of that. And then, there's some other things, advertising, they're getting kickbacks there. So, you know what? Those guys earn the money. You could argue that the players really haven't done much. It's the people around the players, but they still got to perform in their sport at elite level, right? So I get it. Like I'm not sour that we're not even close. Like, but I do think there's some optimism around. There's actually something there now, and that it can continue to grow. And over time, hopefully, it gets to a point where we're like maybe more compared to like CFL. I'd say it could go that way, right? Sure. Like guys in the CFL are getting like 60 to 80,000 for a 6-7 month commitment. Could we do the same, right? Yeah. And then you get 4 or 5 months to go get, a landscaping job in the summer. I don't know, something, right? Where you get an extra 10, 12 grand. And all of a sudden now you're making $80,000 and 3/4 of your year is playing as a professional in a league, right? Like that's something that I feel like if anybody's listening, we would go for the CFL kind of landscape, put some caps on like what you want for your makeup for Canadians and Americans. If it's a league that's North American, obviously that wouldn't be relevant. But like CFL right now is in discussion with percentage of team being Canadians, right? So that's a big thing for them. But I think that's something that could be down the road, a model that they could look at and actually have some realistic expectations for. Yeah.
Because it would be cool to have, that you have that young girl's playing peewee hockey or Bantam hockey, and her goal one day is to play
professional.
Yeah. Totally. And the leagues, is the foundation of that league is good. It's going to be around for 10, 20, 30, 50 years. And that is a realistic goal, which would be pretty sweet for some of these girls coming up for sure.
Yeah. Well, I think our girls, I talked to them a lot about money and financial commitments and stuff like that. And, I'm just going through the process. We talked about buying a house, putting a mortgage down and putting a down payment, getting a mortgage, I should say. And, talking to the girls, I said, I'm about 10 years ahead of you. Right. And I'm having a hard time getting into the market right now. Like, and it all comes back to money, right? Like what can you do to set yourself up so that you're in a good position to have some of these things like a car, a house, whatever. Right. Yeah. Let alone like starting your own business and doing some other things there where, it would be nice, like to know that, I didn't have to worry about a career, but I could just play hockey for the rest of my life. It'd be amazing. I had to work my butt off from 12 years old. I was picking up golf balls at a golf course so that I could have a dime to go out on weekends. Like, I don't know. So it's just a different model, and some of it's gender specific, but I think it's sport in general. Yeah. Right? Like there's always going to be a bit of a higher fan base for male athletes right now. Yeah. I say like tennis, a bit more comparable. Like there's some female athletes that are attracting the same amount of attention. Yeah. But I'd say it's kind of driven more towards individual sports rather than team sports, with the gender differences being a bit tighter. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, definitely. Well, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I really appreciate you coming by for the rebuild that you got going on. And I don't have to call it a rebuild, but just kind of
it is a rebuild.
Your new venture. How's everything coming along there as far as changing the culture? Because this was your first full year. Yeah. Now you're going in your second year. And I know the way you are and know what you like and how you like your kind of teams run and keeping all those kind of check marks as far as diet and working out and keeping things, how's the culture? How has that shifted? Is it a longer process than you thought, or is it kind of moving in the right direction?
I think it was a really good season for me to go through because there were a lot of different challenges. I'd say it's probably really, really relevant to say that every team's going to go through a year with their own set of unique challenges within their group, right? Managing a group of 24 females plus staff members and all those other moving pieces is hard, right? And same with the boys side, there's going to be similar challenges. And again, with some other things that we need to consider with the academic side. There's some, obviously like mental health's becoming a bit more prevalent, stuff like that, where it's not just about hockey anymore. Yeah. Then this year was good for me because it gave me a bit of different exposure to different things. And it really taught me how to manage differently in certain situations. But I'd say in terms of the shift itself, I wasn't naive, but I was hoping that the transition would happen like within a year. Like, okay, here we go. Like we're program's back on the right track. We're moving. Like we're going to achieve different results. And I think for me, one thing that I've learned over the course of this year is that process is going to be like 3 to 5 years. Yeah. Like it's going to be, again, trying to find the right people for our program, trying to add skill to that makeup. And then for me, it's just kind of finding what resources at the institution can we take advantage of that are really going to help move our program forward. So whether it be the strength conditioning, some like team building stuff on campus that we have, integrating our team with different athletic teams on campus, like just finding a bit more morale and pride around what it means to be a Golden Hawk. Because back in the day when the program was really successful, we went on to run 7 years in a row, OUA champions. Unbelievable.
That's crazy.
It's so hard to do. Right. And there was obviously a reason that they were achieving that level of success. And for me, it's connecting with alumni, trying to figure out what was it about your experience that's different than what we're getting now. And, trying to do some backloading on, let's figure out what our problem is or what's challenging or what's preventing us from moving forward. Some of it might be the personnel, and I'm included in this. Like maybe it's the way that I'm leading, maybe it's the way the girls are within the program. But I am optimistic that every year it's going to be a step better, right? And it's just going to continue to grow. And then, through the right recruitment and the right planning by year 4 and 5, I only signed a 5-year contract, so we'll see what happens there.
That's your window.
Yeah. That, we can reevaluate where we're at as a program.
Yeah.
We're doing more fundraising initiatives. Like there's a bunch of other things that we can do to help promote our program. I'm trying to build some relationships with some local hockey organizations in Kitchener, Waterloo area, Cambridge even, Guelph. Like we're competing with a few other institutions there. Sure. But I think there's just a lot of positive things that could happen, but there's got to be some legwork that's put in ahead
definitely.
of time. So, and part of that's going to be some ownership on the players. I think that's a big thing for us right now as a group is, trying to implement us as coaches, the right things that are going to allow them to have that success or that feeling that we believe that we could be a program that wins more than 6 hockey games, because that was us this year, right?
Yeah.
But reality is we were 3 wins out of playoffs. So, and we had 5 games, 1 goal losses. So it depends how you look at it. Like outcomes so deceiving when it comes to your actual team, the development as a group and stuff like that, where ultimately we're all competitive. We're in this sport. We probably want to win more games, but I think long-term it's understanding that each year is going to be a different process. We're going through a bit of a equipment transition next year. It's going to be cool, a little unveiling where, new year for jerseys. So we got a couple different designs happening there, going back to purple gear, which is fun. A bit more custom with how we look, how we behave on the ice, and a bit more of like, I'd say like people are going to start to identify with our program a little bit easier, which I think long-term will help with, again, building some relationships with some younger girls, people wanting to come to our games, me going out to a few more practices, a whole bunch of different stuff combined. But it was good for me to experience what I did. Cause like you said, like when I walked into Western, like I was working with some elite athletes, and players have a big part of the success, right? And, coaching is a little bit, I always say, like we do contribute a little bit to result when it comes to ice management strategy, stuff like that. But ultimately it's gotta be the players that push the high level of performance. And, I think that's where I wanted the challenge as a coach. Like I looked at the transition as a good opportunity for me, being the age that I am, having the opportunity to really understand who I am as a coach and grow a program to a point where we get back to where we were 8-10 years ago, right? Or we're having a bit more success and outcome. And I think our support though is unbelievable at the school. Like we've got everybody. Like I remember the first couple of weeks that I got hired, like I was just cruising around campus trying to get a feel for what was going on, and there were kids stopping me and be like, "Hey, you're the new hockey coach, right?" It's like crazy. Just like crazy. And I'm like, "What?" Like, yeah, like that's me. And never has that happened to me before, right? So I think again, smaller institution, there's some different benefits to working within a small group environment, and it's just been. It's been challenging in its own way, in a sense that it's new city, new school, new team, trying to get to know the players that we're working with. But long-term, over time, I think it's going to be a really good spot for us to have some success.
Oh, it's awesome. And changing, it's easier to say, we've got to change the culture. Yeah. But it's such, whether it's business or it's hockey or any sport, it's a process, man. Yeah. And there's so many things that go into it. And I would think that your phone calls to alumni and people that have been there before, or even profs and athletic directors, they got to be kind of excited that someone's there now that's kind of picked up the ball and said, you know what, we're changing this. We're going to change it into the positive, right? And it's got to be exciting for especially alumni that have some pride there, that maybe had those good years and they're like, man, this program is terrible for the last bunch of years. And now all of a sudden, like, whoa, there's a bit of light there, Yeah,
I think there was just a lot of questions on like what happened.
Yeah.
Like, how do we go from, competing at nationals every year to not even making playoffs? And, for me, it's still, I wasn't necessarily a part of it. So I can't pinpoint it to one thing.
Yeah.
I think I can say safely over the course of this year, it's been a combination of a number of different things. And I think it all stems back to putting the right time into recruiting the right people. And again, that when we say that, we consider both the student and the athlete. Right? Can you identify? Can you sell your institution? Can you get them to believe that this is the spot for them?
Yeah.
And then if you get 4 or 5 like-minded people together, then that's going to start to attract the right people moving forward, right? And I think that's where we're gonna have to spend the next couple of years trying to put a lot more time in, maybe than we'd otherwise would. But I've had a couple of alumni reach out and want to do recruiting for me. Great. Right, where we can't get to games on a weeknight in Toronto, or on the weekend where we're on the road. So I think everyone's starting to recognize the transition, the change that's happened, the potential of how good it could be. And everyone's doing a real good job right now of just identifying and offering help with not expecting a lot in return, financially, especially. So I'm pretty optimistic that way, that together we'll kind of grow the program. I'll continue to grow as a coach, and we'll start to put some pieces together that, like I said, I was happy Guelph obviously won the national championship this year. So, big shout out to Rachel and her gang over there at Guelph, because it's pretty good. It's an awesome thing for our league to have an OUA team go through.
Yeah, that's cool.
And win and knock off some of the favorites. I'd say obviously Alberta was one. Montreal, I think, was 2 going in the tournament. So, and they had they had successful seasons themselves. So for them to go in as kind of the 3 seed and do what they did was pretty awesome to watch. And I was lucky I got to be a part of it in terms of being a spectator in PEI, and it's back there again next year. So, some big expectations for everybody coming out of our league. But I think long term, the OUA is still, we got 13 teams, right? And I think every year it kind of moves who can win. And we're hoping that one day Laura gets back on top. So
that's cool.
Yeah,
that's great. Well, listen, thanks a lot for popping by today. Really appreciate your time and your insight on girls hockey. I think it's one of those things I always say, if girls put some effort into just skill development and getting better and asking the right questions, there's a lot of opportunity out there for them.
Yeah.
And I think, for a lot of them, just either scholarship in Canada or scholarship to the States is an unbelievable way to do your 4 years, be a student athlete and have some fun, obviously, along the way. So thanks a lot for sharing your story. And
thanks for having me.
You have anything any words of inspiration you want to finish off with?
No, we're all good.
Okay, thanks, Kelly.
Okay.